Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to do the Kuta software Algebra 1 worksheet, solving quadratic equations by factoring. So our directions for the entire worksheet are solve each equation by factoring. Now, I have a video on this. If you don't go to my YouTube channel, and if you don't know how to factor, I have plenty of videos on how to factor and how to solve. So here we have k plus 1 times k minus 5 equals 0. So if you guys know the zero product property, we have to set each expression equal to 0 so that it becomes an equation. Then you can solve, and those are your answers. So here we're going to have k plus 1 equals 0. And we're going to have k minus 5 equals 0. So we're going to solve each equation. It's basic. So if we subtract 1 from both sides, we're going to get that k equals negative 1. And if we add 5 to both sides, we get k equals 5. So these are our two solutions, k equals 5 and k equals negative 1. That's our answer, number 1. Number 2, same thing. We're going to set both expressions equal to the 0. So we're going to have a plus 1 equals 0. And we're also going to have a plus 2 equals 0. So if a plus 1 equals 0, then we get a equals negative 1. And if a plus 2 equals 0, then we get a equals negative 2. Those are our answers in number 2. And you can check them by plugging them back in and seeing if that makes sense. So let's see. Negative 1 plus 1, 0. Negative 2 plus 2, 0. And 0 times 0, 0. So this is right. Number 3, same thing. Same basic concept. So we're going to set each equal to 0. So 4k plus 5 equals 0. And k plus 1 equals 0. So 4k plus 5 equals 0. We can subtract 5 from both sides, giving us 4k equals negative 5. And then we can divide both sides by 4, giving us k equals negative 5 over 4. And if k plus 1 equals 0, then we're going to have k is equal to a negative 1. So negative 1 and negative 5/4 is our answer in number 3. Number 4, 2m plus 3 times 4m plus 3 equals 0. So we're going to set 2m plus 3 equal to 0, which will get 2m is equal to 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. Then we can divide both sides by 2, which gives us m equals negative 3 halves. And 4m plus 3 equals 0. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides, which gives us 4m equals negative 3. Then we can divide both sides by 4, which gives us m equals negative 3/4. Or you can rewrite it as negative 0.75. That's our answers. These are our answers in number 4. Next, here we have it in the ax squared plus bx plus c form. Here we're going to factor. So here we're going to first make sure the equation equals 0. So to make it equal 0, we're going to add 5 to both sides. So when you add 5 to both sides, we're going to be left with x squared minus 11x plus 19 plus 5 is 24. And we're going to have that equal to 0. Good. Now we can factor this equation. So we're going to find two numbers that multiply to give us 24, but they add together to give us negative 11. What is that? We have 8 and 3, but how do you tell to use negative 8, 3, 3, negative 8? Or so on. So here, since it has to multiply and become positive, 8 and 3 works, but that does not add to negative 11. So we have to use negative 8 and negative 3. Now we're going to put that into an expression. So x minus 3 times x minus 8 equals 0. So now we just solve each individual one. So x equals 3 and x minus 8 equals 0. Then we get x equals 8. So 8 and 3 are our answers in number 5. Number 6, we have n squared plus 7n plus 15 equals 5. Same thing, we're going to make this equation equal 0. So n squared plus a 7n plus 15 minus 5 is 10 equals 0. Now that we got equal to 0, let's factor it. So two numbers that multiply to give us 10 but add to give us a 3 is a 5 and 7. Sorry, 5 and 2. So we're going to have n plus 5 times n plus 2 equals 0. Now if n plus 5 equals to 0, we get n equals a negative 5. And if n plus 2 equals 0, we get n equals a negative 2. So negative 5 and negative 2 are our answers in number 6. Number 7, we have n squared minus 10n plus 22 equals negative 2. Let's make this 0. So we're going to have n squared minus 10n plus 24 equals 0. Now, we're going to find two numbers that multiply to give us 24, but add to give us negative 10. Those numbers are 12 and 2. But in this case, it's a negative 12. Well, let's find out. So, if we do 12 and 2, that won't work. What if we try negative 12 and negative 2? Nope. Now, what if we try, since it's a negative and it's a positive? So here, our problem is there aren't two numbers that multiply to give us 24 but add to give us negative 10. So if we try 12 and 2, 12 times 2 is 24, but 12 plus 2 is not 10. If we try negative 12 and 2, that multiplies to give us a negative 24, even though that adds to negative 10. So in this problem, we're going to have no solution. That means no two numbers or no n value will satisfy this equation. Number 8, we have n squared plus a 3n minus 12 equals 6. Let's make this 0. So n squared plus 3n minus 18 equals 0. Now let's factor this. So two numbers that multiply to give us negative 18, but they have to add to give us 3. What are those numbers? Well, let's see. 9 and 2 multiply to give us 18, but we cannot add any way to get that 3. We can try 6 and 3. And this could work. But how do we decide? It has to multiply to give us negative, so at least one of these has to be negative. But since it's a positive, the 6 has to be positive. So we're going to have n plus 6 times n minus 3 equals 0. So that means n equals a negative 6 and n equals 3. Those are answers in number 8. So we're going to do this last problem on this worksheet, and then a part 2 video, which I'll do soon, I'll do numbers 10 through 22. Here, let's make this 0. So 6n squared minus 18n minus 24 is equal to 0. Well, what do you notice here? 6, negative 18, and negative 24 have a common factor of 6. So we can pull out a GCF. So we're going to multiply this entire expression, divide this by 6. So now we're just going to divide. So 6n squared over 6 is just n squared. Negative 18n divided by 6 is a negative 3n. And negative 24 divided by 6 is a negative 4. and this equals 0. Now we're going to factor the middle expression. So n squared minus 3n minus 4. We gotta find two numbers that multiply to -4 but add to -3. 4 and 1 count, so the 4 has to be negative. So we're gonna have -4 and -1. They multiply to give you -4 and they add to give you -3. So n minus 4 times n plus 1 equals 0. Skip the 6 because 6 does not equal 0 in any way. So we're going to have n minus 4 equals 0. So we're going to have n equals 4 and n plus 1 equals 0 to get n equals -1. So 4 and -1 are our answers in this last problem of part 1 on this worksheet. Thank you for watching. I'll join you in for part 2. Subscribe.